You only live once, so live for yourself. And once you start living for yourself, then those around you see how happy you are, and they come around and they support you. This is Maz Jobrani in Making a Portrait. So I was born in Iran. I left Iran when I was 6 years old, late 1978. I went back in, I think like 1999, I think it was, when my dad was still there. I went to Iran for 2 weeks to visit my dad. And it was interesting. One thing I'll tell you is anybody who goes back to their childhood home or an area where they grew up, all of a sudden it's amazing because the sense of smell, you go, oh my God, I remember this. So I remember the smells of my aunt's house when I was a 4-year-old. I remember like the smells of Tehran. When I went back to Iran for that 2-week period, I would taste these sweets. Like the Persian sweets are very different than American sweets. So yeah, man, my earliest memories are of being in Iran. I was in Iran pre-revolution Iran, so there was a lot of Western influence. So I loved Zorro. I loved Muhammad Ali. My father was always into boxing and wrestling and all that stuff. He loved Muhammad Ali. Muslim countries loved Muhammad Ali because he was Muslim and also he was the champ. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but he was taking these stands that were political. Like as a kid, we had a lot of American influence. So Spider-Man comic books, Superman, Batman. Me and my cousin, we used to like look at the Spider-Man comic strips and be like, all right, we're gonna act out these little things. When I first came to America, I was privileged. You know, my father was well off, so I was able to come to America. When I left Iran, I was in the 1st grade. And in Iran, we had half day in English, half day in Persian. So my English was already like, I already spoke English. So my mom brings us here and she's like, all right, you guys haven't gone to school for like 3-4 months, you've been hanging out. So in the spring of 1979, she puts us, instead of putting me in the 1st grade, she puts me in the 2nd grade. She just skips me a year. The few things I had going for me was I was a good athlete, so that helps when you're out there playing. The other thing I think was I'm a pretty outgoing kid. When I was at that school, I think my sports helped me assimilate. Probably sense of humor. That's probably where I started realizing, oh, you could be funny. You know, I was watching a lot of cartoons, so I probably like started becoming a fan of comedy then. My biggest struggle into getting into this, coming from my background, meaning immigrant parents, was trying to get over them. Let's face it, if a kid goes to their parent and says, I want to be an artist, they go, why don't you be a doctor and then just do art on the weekends? Throughout my high school, I did plays. I wanted to do stand-up comedy. And it's funny because, again, having immigrant parents, my parents would come to the plays and there was the director would say, hey, your kid's got this, you know, he's got the talent for this. And my mom and dad would say, oh, thank you. And then we get in the car and my dad would be like, that bitch is crazy, don't listen to her. So then I go to college and I start studying political science thinking that I'll be a lawyer. And then while I'm there, I take an acting class and that teacher says, hey, you got what it takes. And again, I'm confused. So I had all these options and I had parents pushing me in another direction. And it took me until I was in my mid-20s to finally have the confidence and finally have the maturity level to realize you only live once, so live for yourself. I was working as an assistant. I was like getting coffee in an advertising agency. And there was a guy there, his name was Joe Rhine, and he was in his 60s at the time, and I was in my mid-20s. And he saw a video of a play I was doing. It was a comedy, and he's like, hey, you're good at this. Have you ever thought about doing this? And I said, now I'm in my mid-20s, I'm gonna save up some money, and then I'm gonna go for it. And he goes, let me talk to you for a second. He goes, listen, at that time, he goes, I'm in my 60s now. And he goes, there were some things I wanted to do when I was in my 20s. I never got around to doing it. He goes, if you really want to do it, do it. So that was a light bulb moment. And at that point, I enrolled in some improv classes, took some stand-up comedy classes. And that was 22 years ago. And I just kept moving after that. And sometimes when I get caught in a rut, I got to remind myself, just keep moving. Nike said it best, just do it. And it really is as simple as that. And I, you know, we all have our ups and downs. We all get depressed. We all get upset. We all, you know, the pandemic hits and you go, now what, right? But you keep moving. So it's a reminder. I tell young people all the time, I tell my own kids, I go, create your own opportunities. I go, write your own pieces, write your own scripts, write your own music, do your own art. Just do it, but do it because you're gonna enjoy doing it. Every career that you choose is gonna have BS that comes with it. There's politics. That's why you should choose something you really love. I didn't get into this to make money. If I wanted to make money, I would have gotten into something very different. I got into this because I had to do it. I'm alive on stage. Even under the pandemic, when I get on stage and perform for free, I'm happy. Because I remember coming to LA from Northern California when I was like 13 years old, and Eddie Murphy at the time was a rock star, and I wanted to be like that guy. And we stayed at a hotel across from the Comedy Store. And I didn't even know what the Comedy Store was then. But the people that we were with go, oh, that's the Comedy Store. Eddie Murphy performs there. I was like, what? Let's go. And they're like, nope, 21 and older. But one of the biggest breaks for me was when I became a regular at the Comedy Store. When Mitzi Shore made me a regular at the Comedy Store, first of all, I was like, oh my God, this is where Eddie Murphy used to perform. Richard Pryor. I go, I've arrived. My name is on the same side as Eddie Murphy's. So when you go to the Comedy Store, if you go to the main room, you look up, there's Eddie Murphy, there's Maz Jobrani. I'm like, oh my God. Whenever people go, you have any regrets or would you give yourself advice? I always try to say, I don't have any regrets because our lives are the lives we've led. And we are where we are because of the lives we've led. So it's hard for me to go back and say, oh, you should have done X, Y, and Z differently. However, if I could go to that young kid who was not sure what path he should take, I would say, look, man, if you really love doing this, just do it. And as a matter of fact, I got a chance to do, at UC Berkeley, I gave the commencement speech in 2017, which was really cool. That was a life highlight. And I got to stand in front of 40-something thousand people and a bunch of young people. And I said, don't listen to your parents. I said, do what you love. I said, do what you love. If you're lucky enough to have found that, do it. And if you're confused and you don't know what it is that you love, then think about what you used to do when you were a kid and didn't have to pay rent. I was working at an ad agency. I was driving down La Brea, coming from Sunset, and the Muhammad Ali billboard was there. And there's a famous picture of Ali where he's punching like that, and it's got the angle, and you see him. And I'm looking at that, I go, wow, he rocked the world. He even says it, right? He rocked the world. He influenced the world. And I go, God, I wish I could do that one day. And then I thought to myself, you know what? First, I got to work on myself. Then hopefully I can work, help some around me. Then if I'm lucky enough, one day I can affect people worldwide. And so that is a pursuit that I think continues to be part of who I am today. And that's it.